Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, and welcome back. I just want to remind you that you can get all of my homestead science books on my website and many of them on Amazon for a new way of teaching agriculture to today's youth and aspiring homesteaders by focusing on small-scale farming and self-sufficiency. If you're a school or co-op or a retailer and need invoicing, please feel free to reach out to me directly. This also includes my newest products, Homestead Trivia and Raising Self-Sufficient Kids. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to have you back. So first off, I just want to remind everybody about Homestead Trivia. We are getting ready to start shipping it out. The kids game is at the printer right now. I should be having it any day now. And so if you want to get that under your tree, in your stockings, on the shelf of your farm store or feed store, head over to the website and check it out because it's going to be a really great Christmas present this year. It's educational, it's fun. And you can, find out who the homestead master in your house is. So we have a very special guest today, my husband, Ron.
Yep, I'm here. She had to drag me in, but I'm here.
I did. It was really hard to do, but it's those farm girl like muscles going on. Anyways, I've had Ron, or I've talked about Ron a lot. Obviously, I mean, when we're talking about homesteading, homeschooling, our lives, of course, my husband's going to come up, but he's only joined me in one other podcast, and that's because we were talking about meat butchering. So, of course, he was here for that one. But so having him on today, I think I'm just going to go ahead and let him introduce himself, and then we have a really special talk for you.
All right. Well, some of you may know me. Some of you probably never heard of me, and that's okay too. I've been to a few of our conferences, Homesteaders of America, several different homeschool conferences. I've spoke with Kody at one of them and a little bit at Homesteaders. But anyway, a little bit about me. I am a disabled veteran at this point in life. I My life kind of took a really crazy turn of events about 10 years ago.
10 years, yeah.
Um, I was whole married with children type deal.
Not to me.
Not to her. And there was a tragic event in the family. My late wife passed away. We were married for 12 years and totally unexpected. Left me as a widower after 12 years of marriage with 4 boys to try to raise. That was an interesting one. So long story short, which we'll get into all that a little more later, I wound up moving back home to where the only thing I knew to restart, and one thing led to another, and not all that crazy of amount of time later, I found this one. And as the story goes, here we are now.
And that's the end of the podcast. No, just kidding. So, I have shared a lot of our story with you guys, how we came to homesteading, how we started homeschooling, and, why we're fighting so hard for food freedoms. But the driving force, sorry, my brain just stopped. I might edit that out. But the driving force of who we've become today has a story like all on its own. And we want to share it with you today. And it's raw, it's honest, it's hard to talk about, but it's also really inspirational. So we just want to tell it to you and have you kind of see that side of our life and why we're so passionate about what we do and why we're so passionate on helping you guys as well. So, like Ron was saying, we met right after his late wife passed away. It was just shy of a year later. Gosh, we were both in like this place where I don't know. I mean, I don't really want to speak for him, but I mean, he was starting over completely, and definitely had some down stuff going on.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I went from being married for 12 years, and in that time military, I went to Iraq for well, right about 3 years, combat tours over in Iraq. I only served for a total of 5 years in the military, but like I said, three of them was in Iraq. Um, so coming back and suffering that loss, I didn't know what to do. So I reset. I went back to a place I swore I would never go.
Go ahead, tell him where it was.
I went back to California where I grew up. Um, Fortunately, that didn't last long because I got out there and I started getting comfortable in what was going to be my new way, I guess. I bought a house. I had girlfriends. I just whatever. But I made up in my mind that I'm not a good person as a single dad. I'm not the person I want to be.
He never did laundry.
No, no, no.
No.
Laundry's terrible. So I made up in my mind really quick that I'm not meant to be a single man. So I started kind of looking. At that point, shoot, I don't even remember how old I was. I was old enough that I wasn't going out to bars. I wasn't going to clubs. I had my four boys to raise, and how
I
do you
think
how do
you were like
you
34.
how do you find another spouse at that age? Well, at that time, everything online was just really taking off. So where did I go? I
Are you
went all
really going to
over.
tell them that
Oh
part?
yeah, oh yeah, because ultimately, I loved fishing. Ironically enough, I caught this one on a site called Plenty of Fish. Yep, that's right.
I would like to say that that was way cooler, but no. So yeah, I was kind of in the same place. I was a single mom. I had been since my twins were about 3 months old. I've told some of you my story, but I went through really bad domestic violence. When the twins were 3 months old, my their dad, my husband, put me in the hospital. Went through, a lot of soul searching, but I knew right away that that wasn't going to be all there was about me. So, um, I mean, still wearing sunglasses to hide the black eyes, I went down and signed up for college, and I ended up getting my degree before my bachelor's in agriculture before the twins even started kindergarten. And I moved back to my hometown, which was also in California, but in a different place. And about a year later, I got headhunted for a job in the Sacramento Valley. And so, I mean, I took it. It was a great opportunity, but I was a single mom with two kids working as many hours a week as I possibly could, like about 80 hours a week. I mean, I'd get off work on Friday and meet my mom halfway, and she'd take my kids all weekend, and I'd work all weekend too. And so, yeah, the options for dating were slim to none. And I had to wear a hairnet at work, so I was definitely not meeting anybody there. Because a hairnet and a hard hat's a really good look for me.
Right.
Hey, it worked on you, but so yeah, I got online too, and that's where him and I met, like he said. I thought he was crazy because he wanted to take me to a Luke Bryan concert for our first date.
You do remember I said I'm disabled, right? Yeah,
I
that's
thought that meant physically. It's false advertisement. So we met up at a coffee shop, just to, make sure he wasn't a serial killer, and I got his license plate number and ran a background check.
all in all, she was the crazy one. Yes.
There's that. Um, but on as far as like how we met, like kind of from that point, it was, I mean, I hate to even say it this way, but almost like a fairy tale. I mean, we found exactly what we needed in each other right from day one.
Yeah, yeah. We decided to meet at the Starbucks, so we walk in, I've got some papers in my hand, and I don't know who she's gonna be at this point. It's first time really meeting her and talking online. And so I'm like, I'm gonna take this application and fill it out. I was working on going to the fire academy down there in California. And she asked me what I'm doing and this and that. So I tell her, and all of a sudden I mentioned something about my son Wyatt. She says, "Who?" I said, "Wyatt, my son." She says, "You're kidding me, right?" "No, why?" She says, "I have a son named Wyatt." Ooh, okay. Well, this could be interesting then.
I actually thought that was going to be like a game ender right there. Like, that's too weird to have kids with the same name. I don't want to see this chick anymore. Um, our boys have now, been like the best of friends for the last 9 years. So we just call them Big Wyatt and Little Wyatt.
Yeah. Now their roles have reversed. They're Big Wyatt and Little Wyatt, just the opposite children.
I don't know. Have you seen Big Wyatt lately? That boy has found cheeseburgers.
Right.
He was the tiny one for a long time. Like I almost thought like there was something wrong with him that he wasn't growing. But yeah, he hit a growth spurt. Um, so yeah, I mean, our conversation today, I mean, we could go into our entire story all day long, but really, I mean, I think it was just kind of a whirlwind from that point. Like, we decided we were done with California. That was
Yeah, that was a real quick decision.
like conversation number one. The only reason we were both still in California is because
I
we
came back for a reset and she hadn't escaped yet.
yeah, I'd actually gone to a job interview in the like almost the same town we live in now, about 6 months before I met him. But I was offered the job. They were going to pay for relocation expenses and everything. And I came home from the job interview and my brother died just a few days later. And it just wasn't the right time to leave my family. I needed to still be there for my dad and help kind of pick up those pieces. So I wasn't going anywhere anytime soon, but yeah, I think it was I mean, for me, it was 9 months later about that we decided like we're done. Let's get the heck out of California. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much more that we could do with our lives, not being sucked for every penny. And that was almost a decade ago. Like I couldn't imagine if we were still there.
Yeah. Yeah. So from there, my dad, this was actually in the wintertime. It was like December, January.
It was January, yeah.
My dad calls me up and says, "Hey, I got a VA appointment in Portland. Would you mind coming over and helping me drive, give me a hand?" "Sure, no problem, Dad." Of course, Dad's a disabled veteran as well. Sorry, Dad, if you didn't want me saying that, but so anyway, I talked to Kody. I'm like, "Hey, what do you think? You want to go to Oregon and go do this with me?" She jumps right on board. "Heck yeah, let's go."
I never say no to an adventure, especially a
Right.
car trip.
So we go over, and I think that was the first time you met Dad.
Yeah.
So she heard about Dad. Dad's a double amputee, disabled veteran, lost his legs in Vietnam, stepped on a landmine, all that good stuff. He's unstoppable. Dad's crazy.
Tell me about
Love
it.
him,
Woo.
but he's crazy. So we go
That
over.
man needs like a full-time babysitter.
He does, or so we thought. So I thought.
I still believe a little, but
We go over, we take Dad to his appointment in Portland. He has his eye work done, and we get back and drop Dad off at the house and just go for a drive to kind of unwind and chat a little bit. And we come driving back in his circle drive, and guess what's going on? Uh, Dad's up on his roof with no t-shirt and
no legs.
no legs,
Took his legs off.
shoveling the snow off his roof. So Kody was like, "Are you ready to move?" "Yep, I am." So we didn't even get out. We just made a circle and went started looking for houses, and we put an offer in on a house that day.
And oh my gosh, was it a gorgeous house. Like it was one of those, like you never think that you're going to be able to live in, especially when you have always lived in California. I mean, we were able to, um, I mean, there was just a very small difference between the very small house and like a rural neighborhood that we were selling in California for this like chalet style um cabin in the mountains of Oregon. I mean, it was just stunning. I mean, we thought we'd hit the jackpot at that point.
Oh, we had it at that point.
Well, yeah. So yeah, we moved what, just like 3 months later?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. We put an offer on the house, went back and told Dad, "Hey, guess what?" We just put an offer on a house, and hopefully everything works out. We'll be moving up here soon. He was like, no way. Yeah, we did. Here's the address.
Yep, that was we didn't even tell the kids. Like we had to go back to California and like sit all the kids down in the living room and be like, we have something to tell you. And we just brought up pictures on the big screen so they could just see the house right away. And like they were so excited. I mean, there was no questions. They were like, they were packing their bags that night.
Yeah.
We're like, slow down. We still have to clean the house and sell it.
Um, so from there, we made the big move from California on up to Oregon. Um, thought that was going to be our final destination, and
I mean, yeah, we got married in the backyard that fall
mhm,
because we wanted to get married there because we thought that's where we were going to be forever.
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we actually we put the offer in on the house, and everything was accepted. We were working on selling our place in California, waiting for everything to go through, and we wound up coming up to Idaho for a wedding.
Yeah, for one of my best friend from college's
And
wedding.
just down the road, a little town called Athol, Idaho, down south of us. And we drove up here. No, I guess we flew into Spokane and then drove up.
Hmm.
And I had never been up in this area, paid attention to anything. And I was like, oh my gosh, how did I not know about this? How did we just put an offer in and get it accepted on this place in Oregon? And I've never seen this.
Which was the exact town that I was supposed to move to like less than a year previously.
Yeah. So at that point, I was like, well, let's just see. We'll just we just got our place in Oregon. Let's go with that. And so we stuck with that and always had kind of Idaho in the back of our minds. And
We kind of thought we'd wait till maybe like if your dad passed away or something, like when in our retirement, we'd move to Idaho. Like,
yeah, but you couldn't wait that long. Grandma's proved us wrong on that. It's my grandma's 98 years old and going strong, and dad's following in her footsteps. And if I waited for him, I'd be dead first.
exactly. So yeah, like I said, we got married that fall. It was, I mean, beautiful wedding. It was everything that both of us had always dreamed of, never had. I don't know, like, but I mean, the next year was just I decided to take some time off work. The kids were in school. Like we've said, he's a disabled vet. We took to exploring like
Everything.
every mountain trail and lake in Idaho or in sorry, not in Idaho, in Oregon. Onyx Maps had just come out, and I was like on a mission to find every mountain lake down the Pacific Crest Trail. A lot of hunting, a lot of hiking. I mean, it was the life that we had dreamed of.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. We need to find a mountain lake again soon. I think there's
Right across the valley.
that's like a 15-mile hike. I think I'm good. Uh, but we found out we were having Wade, our 7-year-old. If any of you have come to conferences, you've probably met Wade, and he's a force to be reckoned with.
That he is.
Holy moly. That kid's gonna rule the world one day. Um, then gosh, like the fall after Wade was born,
Mhm.
Ron was having some really bad heartburn. And we thought that, he was just on the wrong meds. Like, no big deal. Make an appointment with the VA hospital, um, go, just get it checked out, see what's going on. And we went for an appointment, and they're like, yeah, it's probably just a med change that you need, but it's been a while since you've had, what was it?
Scope.
A scope. Don't, I thought they did a CT.
Well, that's what we did this time when they found us.
Oh, okay. So I guess he'd had previous scopes, and then they decided to go ahead and do a CT just to make sure everything was all right. And oh, they did some lab work, and it came back, you had some elevated liver enzymes. And they were actually saying they thought it was from your like hep shots that you had to have in the military, your hepatitis shots.
Okay.
Yeah, I might have a slightly better memory than Ron, but maybe we'll talk about that one later. So I mean, I remember sitting in the VA hospital parking lot going over these lab results and being like, well, they're only slightly elevated, and you've had your hep B or your hep A or whatever they were saying that it could have caused that. but they wanted to do a CT just to make sure. And so he went back and did a CT a week or so later. And I actually feel a little bad about this now, but at the time I was thinking, I think he's being a little dramatic. Like, um, but I kind of think he's a little dramatic on his medical stuff all the time. So I may have not.
See how she is.
For those who are not watching on YouTube, he was giving me the look. Like, but I mean, I remember, I mean, just to be really raw and honest about us, like last night or the night before, he was irritated with the kids and he was sitting there taking his blood pressure. And I'm like, good Lord, like, just don't be irritated with the kids.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
So I guess I still kind of think it sometimes now, but so he went and got this CT and they let us know that his liver was slightly enlarged and they wanted to just see what was going on. And so they were going to send us to Portland to the VA hospital there to get some better tests. And so it's just I don't even like know how to go into this part, but we went over to Portland for the day. Wade was just a little guy, like so it was in January, it was
Yeah.
near my birthday, I remember that. Happy birthday. And I actually the biggest one of the biggest things I remember about the day is that we got a burrito from Jack in the Box and they took the first bite of it and it squirted burrito juice all over my shirt. And I was so upset because we were going to spend the day in Portland and I didn't want to be like burrito shirt lady. So I made him stop at a Maurice's as we were pulling into Portland to buy me a new shirt. And we go to the VA hospital and they do just a gauntlet of tests. I mean, we were there for hours with them doing all sorts of different tests. Do you remember that? Well, do you remember the name of that one like tap test they did?
Nope, not a clue.
Yeah. I don't either, but it's kind of like an ultrasound, but they do it with like tapping on like the side of his belly. And, based on how the sound of the taps come back, it tells you more about the consistency of his liver. And even still at this point, neither of us really knew what they were looking for. We were just like, what does an enlarged liver mean? Like we didn't,
They hadn't really give us any good information as to what was really going on.
yeah.
They're like,
And
CT scan says your liver's a little large, and what was the other one?
oh, you had some, your spleen was enlarged because you
Spleen was
had portal
enlarged.
vein hypertension.
So we're going to send you to the liver clinic. I'm sure it's nothing, but we're going to have you checked out anyway.
Yeah. And so we're sitting in this room waiting. I remember like, I think I was changing Wade's diaper or something. 'Cause I mean, those moments, they're burned in your brain. And the doctor walked in and he pulled out the paperwork and goes, well, from the looks of it, I think your liver might be cirrhotic. And then goes, let me go pull the rest of the reports and got up and walked out of the room. And him and I looked at each other, we're like, what does that mean? Like, is it a little bit cirrhotic? What is a little bit cirrhotic like stage one? Like it's just starting to get cirrhotic? Which basically what cirrhotic means is cirrhosis of the liver or liver disease. And cirrhosis is actually what we've found out now is like end stage 4 cirrhosis. There's compensated and decompensated. But yeah, he just drops this bomb and walks out of the room.
Yeah.
And
Now, let me remind you that her dad and brother had just passed away from cirrhosis.
yes,
So you can imagine that on her as well.
yeah, I didn't even know what to think or say. I mean, I was just like, you're not going to do this to me again. Like, I didn't even have anyone to walk me down the aisle at our wedding because I'd lost three of the most important men in my life in the year before our wedding, which was my dad, my brother, and my uncle. And two of them were from liver cirrhosis. And it was like getting hit by a truck. Like I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. And I didn't know enough about liver cirrhosis because my dad was very like keep those types of things to himself. But they're like, yeah, I think you're a little cirrhotic, and then walks out the door. Like I didn't even know what that meant. Um, so I mean, we're pulling out our phones and Googling, and I mean, immediately it's like liver cirrhosis, life expectancy, like 6 months. And I mean, we were just like, well, what does that mean? And this doctor comes back in and explains to us that he is in end stage liver failure, that he was the compensated form of cirrhosis, which means he had all of the symptoms, but he wasn't having the effects from it. Like his liver, his enzymes were high, portal vein hypertension was causing the heartburn, the enlarged liver, all that type of stuff. But he didn't have the yellow eyes. He wasn't like starting to decompensate, and have some of those other issues that go along with it, like confusion, like I'm having right now. And um, yeah, came in and explained that to us, and we're like, well, I mean, I don't know, we didn't even have any time to process. We
No.
we weren't even like, I don't even think we were looking at each other. We were just like shell shocked. Like, what does this mean? And there was no, you have cirrhosis, and this is what we're gonna do for you, and this is the plan. He literally was like, most cases like this, you probably have about a year left.
Yeah.
So come back in 6 months and we'll do another scan and see if you have cancer. Have a nice day. And got up and walked out.
Yeah. And that's what we were left with.
Yeah. And holy jeepers. I mean, the drive home that day was just a whirlwind. I mean, we had about a 3 hour drive home. Most of it we didn't have cell phone service. I'm like trying to research what I can. Um, we went to your dad's as soon as we got home, and he was just, we told him, and I mean, he didn't even know what to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody did. You were 35 at the time.
Yeah.
And just to put it out there, a lot of times liver cirrhosis is caused from alcoholism. And that was not the case with Ron. Not to say he never had a beer, but he wasn't a drinker at all. And especially at 35, he definitely wasn't drinking in the way that would cause
No.
liver cirrhosis, because your liver is a filter. And every time you eat or drink anything, even good stuff, your liver is filtering those things out. But if you put something like alcohol or other toxins on it, it can't filter it fast enough, and it starts damaging it and um, causing this scarring, and the scarring is cirrhosis. So something like alcohol, you have to put a lot on there over a period of time, a long period of time, for your liver to like seize up like that. Um, and so, most of the time you can drink small amounts of alcohol, your body filters it out, you're fine. The next day, there's no issues because your body is capable of handling that. But yeah, he wasn't a drinker and didn't have any factors that would cause his liver to scar at such a young age.
Yeah. Other than Iraq.
Other than Iraq. At this point, we've pretty much pinpointed that his liver issues was probably caused from his time in Iraq, but then came home and went right into the basically standard American diet. I mean,
Hmm.
there was no concept, and this isn't on you, it's a cultural thing. There's no concept that the normal things that most people are eating
It's
is
poison.
is poison. It's worse for you than anything, probably worse for you than the alcohol. Because I mean, it takes most people who are heavy drinkers don't develop cirrhosis until they're, 60, 70, maybe older. And, a 35-year-old man who is exposed to things in Iraq, 5 years before, and comes home and eats the poisonous standard American diet, his liver had no chance to recover. Like it never was able to, because livers can regenerate themselves with mild scarring, but with heavy scarring, they can't. And then the parts that are still healthy continue to scar up as you continue to put more toxins on top of it. We've had a lot of years to research this.
So as you guys can imagine with that, that drive home, I literally took a nosedive. I went to probably the darkest place I've ever been.
He has not been the same man since that day.
It's fair enough to say.
Yeah.
Um, It's been a battle getting back from there.
Um, so that night while we're at his dad's and him and his dad are talking, I was just research has been the only thing that's ever helped me in anything that I've gone through in life. I don't know if it's an anxiety thing or a nerd thing, but
A little bit of both.
maybe. I got back a hold of the doctor from the VA clinic. I'm thinking they probably called him at home because I was going absolutely um ballistic on the phone. Like somebody needs to get back with me and give me some real answers. Um, so because I mean we were just so shell shocked, we didn't even know what to ask in that moment. And then they're like, okay, we'll see you in 6 months. So okay, we don't even get any answers for 6 months. I mean, it's ridiculous. So he ends up calling me and he does explain further that night that even though he is still uncompensated, there's a MELD score, which is something end of life. I don't know. It's like a acronym. I can't think of it right now. And you can't like if you even have a score, which is based on your lab results and a bunch of other things like that. Um, 1 to 12 is you're compensated. After 12, you're decompensated. You aren't even considered for like a liver transplant until you're like 24 or something. I don't quote me on these numbers. I'm just kind of giving a range for understanding. And I think they told me his score was a 7. And so I was like I mean, yes, he's still an end stage. I'm not trying to lighten this, but a 7? Like, and you told us he maybe has a year to live? Like,
Yeah.
how does that compute when I mean, you're not even considered decompensated or can be on the list until much further into this disease. And he said, well, based on his age and how fast this has come on, and the numbers we're getting back on his liver, like a lot of the reasons his score is lower is because just his age gives him like a higher, like it evens it out. Um, and I'm like, give me anything I can do to help him save him. And he kind of shrugged it, like not shrugged his shoulders, but you could hear it like, well, we've heard if you eat a slightly, I mean, if you eat a healthier, more natural diet, that it might improve his quality of life for the time he has left. What?
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Like,
Needless to say, this guy was a complete idiot in my mind.
right? We did see a lady a couple years later who I liked a lot more, but
She was the expert. She was the one that ran the liver clinic, the
yeah,
liver
the
thing.
guy we were working with was a fellow.
Yeah, he was an idiot. And I'm pretty sure I told him that too when I was there one day.
Um, but gosh, I mean, even right at this moment, I can't even tell you the whole range of emotions we went over during that 6 months
Oh, it was terrible.
from January to July before we went back in for another scan. I mean, we didn't know when they tell us he has like about a year to live and we have to wait 6 months before they even look at him again. What were we supposed to do with, I mean, what were we supposed to do at all?
Yeah.
Um, Maybe I'll let you tell a little bit about what you went through and
Wow, I'm not I what I went through. Um, at the time I was a smoker, so we determined best thing we can do is eliminate anything that we possibly could that shouldn't be in our bodies. Of course, cigarettes, bad, yeah. That's a no-brainer. Get them gone.
And really, at
Oh
that moment,
man.
the only thing we knew what to do was like, a really basic Google search that just said to take some toxins out.
Yeah. So on top of all that, I went ahead and just totally cold turkey quit smoking. And oh man, you want to talk about added depression on top of everything else, it was bad. It was bad. I turned into a mean, hateful, miserable person. I didn't want to be around anybody, whether it was my wife or my kids or my dad, anybody. I just totally withdrew into myself. Um, I was done. I didn't want to fight no more.
I don't even know where to start on that one. As his wife, I wanted to be there for him. I wanted to do everything that I possibly could to support him, but he wasn't interested in being supported really at that time. And I understand why and why he was feeling that way, but that didn't help what I was going through.
Not at all. She was doing everything she could to try to help me, and I was pushing away. Um, she was totally changing eating habits for everybody, trying to accommodate me, trying to help me heal. And at the time, I didn't appreciate any of it.
He was kind of mean about it.
It was like, you know what? I've got a year left to live. Why I enjoy food? Why should I eat this crap that I don't like when I'm gonna die anyway?
And let's face it, I was feeding him crap.
It was crap.
And I'm gonna get into that a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna accept no for an answer like that. That's just not how I work. And after losing my dad, and we had a new baby and this family and this whole life that we planned, um, I was mourning this beautiful marriage. I was mourning everything about our daily life. We had planned on trying for another baby right after I got the clear from the doctor after my C-section. So we were coming up on that date, and I mean, he very clearly let me know, like, we are not trying for another baby when I'm dying. And so I was, mourning the baby that I never had, and um so my deep dive into research again, but this was epic. Um I found a Facebook group on fatty liver, which that's actually what they call his, but it was like way past fatty liver at that point, but they say that his was caused by fatty liver, which means it's non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And I found this Facebook group, and I mean, it had all the food lists, all the things that we could eat, all the things that were approved. And when I say approved, it's because if you're ever going to be considered for a transplant, you have to follow, basically, they say your doctor's rule. But of course, our doctor didn't give us anything.
No.
But I wanted to make sure that I could say that we followed this list to a T if it ever came to the point that they might consider him for a liver transplant, that I could sit there and check that list and say, we did not, consume a single thing that wasn't approved. Like if you're watching on YouTube, I have air quotes. um, so, I mean, there's actually a picture of me sitting in our living room with every like kitchen appliance and recipe book, and I think there was a box of chicks in the kitchen at the moment. I took out a loan with his dad to be able to afford like a pressure canner and all these things because I learned really quickly that even though I always considered us home cookers and that, we always had a garden and chickens and we raised an extra 4-H pig and we were hunters, that just wasn't even close to enough. Like
No.
I thought it was homemade because I bought broth in a can and stovetop stuffing in a box and combined them at home. And I'm not even trying, like, that was just the way we were raised and how we were taught in kind of that 80s, 90s generation.
Little did we know.
I mean, I was still more of a home cooker than a lot of women in my like generation, but I was still definitely not anywhere close to where I am now. And I mean, I look back 10 years ago or 8 years ago, however many years ago it was now, and I think about where we are now as homesteaders. And like we go to these homestead conferences and all these booths have all these like goodies and supplies that we own now. And I bought a lot of them that like first 6 months. And so if I was the person like I am now at that point, I would have been like a kid in a candy store, like, an unsupervised child in a candy store sitting in the kitchen with all of my new toys. But at the time, these toys were like this exhausting, heart-wrenching puzzle that I had to figure out. And if I didn't figure it out, my husband was going to die.
Yeah.
And that was exhausting. and it was expensive.
Very, very expensive.
I mean, to be able, like, I mean, just an example of one thing is you can't, you have to buy organic chicken. Everything had to be organic.
And organic's a bunch of BS.
Oh, yes.
Don't believe organic.
Maybe I'll have another podcast just on
Yeah.
organic, but
Sorry guys, I am the disgruntled veteran. My mouth will get away occasionally. I apologize.
I'd like to say that's the best part of him, but maybe for you. So, to just for chicken, for chicken broth, for chicken to eat, you have to be able to go to the store and buy organic chicken to eat. But at the same time, I mean, that's just too expensive to feed a family of 7 at the time.
Yeah.
And so we decided, well, we're just gonna have to raise our own chickens, which, we know that's not an option for everybody, but for us it was. We had 5 acres, we had coops, we had grown up like butchering our own meat and stuff. So it wasn't beyond our scope of abilities. But what was really hard was being able to afford enough chicken and beef and pork and whatever it is that we needed to feed ourselves while all these animals that we were buying were growing so that we could butcher them.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had to budget our lives down to the penny. A lot of things have been great now. I mean, we've been making our own laundry detergent for 8 years, and we're pig farmers, and I think I smell pretty good,
Most days anyway.
We're still pig farmers. But, I can buy all the supplies that I need to make our laundry detergent for the year for the same price that I used to spend for one jug of detergent at Walmart that was poisoning us.
Yeah.
And that's another thing is when you're reducing that toxic load, I mean, your skin is your biggest organ. So anything you're putting on your skin or inhaling, so I mean, laundry detergents, candles, colognes, cleaning supplies, I mean, you name it, like
fragrant waxes,
which I mean,
essences and stuff like that.
yeah, I mean, even Savannah and I were walking down the like smelly aisle in Walmart a couple days ago, and we were like, oh my gosh, instant headache. We can't stand it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like the Scentsy queen before that. Like we had a different smelling Scentsy going in every room, and it never bothered us.
Right.
Like, I mean, we appreciated the smell. And at this point, we use all essential oils, but um it was the biggest learning curve I think I have ever faced in my life. And
I'm still facing it.
well, it's because your brain resets every morning, honey. You're like 51st dates.
There
like,
you go.
What is this essential oil stuff you're giving me? I'm like, it's the same essential oils you've been using every day for 7 years. Like,
it's not that bad.
No, it's not. It feels like it sometimes.
I promise that's not intentional. Yes, it is.
He definitely understands. He's like, oh, like, I don't know, I have a headache. And I'm like, oh, you should use an essential oil. And he's like, right. Which one? And that's where his learning curve is still coming in. But yeah, we're facing this learning curve. And I mean, I'll just be honest, I was doing it on my own. I mean, he was fighting me every step of the way. And I'll admit, when I tried to put on a smile and tell him that ranch dressing made out of plain Greek yogurt tasted just the same.
No, it sucks.
I felt like one of those like moms like feeding her baby, like, here's the helicopter, it's very yummy. Like it was not. But I mean, I was willing to eat the nasty ranch dressing or Greek yogurt ranch dressing if it helped him, and he was not willing to eat it, so I'm stuck eating the nasty food and he's running down to the gas station and getting a taquito. So then I was like double sad, like yeah, I mean, we had a lot of laughs about it, but I mean, honestly, it was
we do now. It was hard then. It was very hard then.
A lot of tears.
And it's still a battle to this day. I'm still fighting to be better every day. I still have issues from that diagnosis as far as mentally. The stuff I dealt with in Iraq didn't mess me up mentally as bad as that diagnosis did. And I dealt with some pretty bad stuff over there. but that diagnosis from that doctor put me in a far worse place than anything I ever dealt with in Iraq.
Um,
So with that, we decided we needed to be able to grow more fruits and vegetables, raise more animals, and where we were in Oregon, our elevation was 4,300 feet. You couldn't grow any. I got in so much trouble. Let me tell you, we finally got this garden going decent this year.
that one year it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was nice. And oh, so it was archery season was getting ready to open up. This is like August
7th.
27th. August 27th.
Well, I only know this because it was his brother's birthday and his brother passed away almost 20 years ago now, and the family still celebrates his birthday like
Yeah.
he's here. So
So August 27th, I'm excited. I'm getting all my gear ready. I know where this deer's at. I've been watching him. I've got him on camera. It's set. My stand's already out there. I get excited, getting my stuff going. I'm ready to go. Totally forget about this garden. Who covers a garden in August? Nobody.
you
Not
do if you
me.
live in the high desert of Oregon. Gardens are covered every night. I don't care what time of the year it is.
So yeah, I go and get my stand. I shoot this great buck and get back down to cell phone reception so I could call these guys to come help track it. And what do I hear on the other end of the phone? You didn't cover the garden. Oh no, 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 no.
I was mad. Like, you do not know how much time and money I put in to this garden to save his dumb life. And he is too interested in like getting out to the deer stand, which I'll tell you, we appreciated the natural meat, but I wanted a tomato. Like I put a lot of money into this garden. I wanted the tomato.
Right.
Um, so actually right before hunting season that year, which I'm really glad that this happened right before hunting season that year because it definitely made the season a little better, was his 6-month follow-up. And at that time, he had quit smoking. He was just, he was eating most of the good things. I mean, we were definitely, our diet had
I was
changed
eating the
considerably.
healthier things. They sure as heck weren't good, but they were healthier.
Yeah, and I'm getting ready to cover that part. But yeah, they were definitely not what we know is healthy now, but we were in a whole different place than we had been 6 months before. So we go to that appointment. We took the kids that time because we were going for the whole weekend to Portland and we were going to go to the zoo and we had this whole plan. And he's like, what if I get a bad diagnosis? What if they tell me it's worse? I said, well, then we're taking the kids to the zoo the next morning. Like, you can't be sad at the zoo. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Um, but if it was a good diagnosis, then we're going to the zoo. So we're happy either way. One thing I really remember about that is you told me if you had a good diagnosis, like if they weren't like, if you hadn't gotten worse, that we could start trying for another baby. I think that was probably just to get me to pay attention to something other than him, or maybe pay more attention to him. I don't know. um, so yeah, we went to the zoo, or we went down there. And he got all that same work done. I mean, it was hours of tests again. The kids are hanging out in the cafe at the Veterans Lounge or whatever. I think some old veteran gave him like a hat. I remember they
Yeah.
had like a hat or a button or something. I know that's not really an important part of the story, but it's one of those things that sticks. Like
Our
I
veterans
said,
will look out for you and your kids in the hard times.
yeah. Um, and all his tests came back decent.
No, nothing was worse than the first go round.
Yeah, nothing was
Nothing has
worse.
ever gone backward, has gotten worse since that first day.
Yeah, I remember your liver was still the same size, your enzymes looked the same, but your portal vein hypertension was better. So for you guys, remember how I was talking about like your liver's like a filter, and when it starts getting clogged up, your portal vein is what's going into your liver from, I don't know,
Everywhere.
somewhere else in your body. And it's like a super highway. And if your liver can't accept that, it starts slowing your blood pressure down right there, and that's what had caused like his spleen to enlarge. That was another one. Your spleen was back to normal, but that's because the portal vein hypertension was gone, which meant already his blood was flowing through his liver at a much faster speed than it had even been 6 months previously. So that was, I don't want to say it was like an exciting day, but like I think we took like our first breath of fresh air
Yeah.
and like, or slept like in the first time in months.
Yeah.
I mean, it had been a really rough road, but that's still,
There was hope.
there was hope, but we still had no answers, nothing to tell us what to do.
But what we did know is what we were doing was not a bad thing.
Hmm.
The doctors weren't giving us any hope, but stubborn wife, she gave us some hope.
So we got back and we decided, let's go ahead and get in with like your primary care.
Mhm.
Maybe a primary care doctor could just have a different conversation with us. I don't remember a whole lot about that conversation. I do remember that we talked about you getting weight loss surgery because that had been proven to be restorative in times when with fatty liver, like that it could heal fatty liver. And we were pretty much told that because he was in stage, the VA wouldn't cover those types of costs. So great. They just think that saving you is a waste of money. Wonderful, you know? But what I do remember in that conversation is I was talking to her about like the nasty Greek yogurt ranch. And something she said to us was, and I said, and I feel like we can't deviate from anything because if we're not following the list of him ever getting onto a transplant list someday, then I felt like we couldn't even like we were trying to sneak ranch dressing, you know, like, you know, we want like Hidden Valley and we are like we're like sneaking it like rogue Hidden Valley eaters. And I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of things that we were missing at that time, but I kind of told her like his diet is so different from what we're used to. It's kind of exhausting. It's really hard for the kids. It's really expensive. And she goes, "Well, why don't you just make it with like, you know, sour cream or whole milk?" And I said, "Well, that's not on the list. And if it's not on the list and we don't have doctors okay, we can't have it." And she goes, "Okay, well then I'll put it down. I am on board with whole milks." And I was like, "But is it still going to be okay for him? Like, you can approve it all you want, but if it's not actually going to help him, it's not about us. Like, just because the doctor says it's okay doesn't mean that it's actually good for you." If she's just trying to appease me in that moment. So I said, "Well, but is it actually okay for him?" And she goes, "There's a lot of new research coming out that's saying that the enzymes that they use to make milk low fat and that type of stuff is actually worse for you than drinking whole fat milk." Now, for a lot of our listeners now, they're going, "Well, yeah," because I know a lot of you guys are very educated on the modern food, like, yeah, the modern homesteading food movement. But 7 years ago, that was that was extreme to, I mean, to even drink full fat milk if you were a healthy person. But to be told that when you're sick and have to follow this really strict diet, that whole milk is actually better for you because of the enzymes. And I was like, I'm so confused. Like, I was an ag major, I worked in food. Don't you get the fat out by separating the cream? She's like, not in commercial settings. They don't separate the fat that way. They use an enzyme to make it happen faster and to like exactness. And they're finding that these enzymes and chemicals that they use are worse for you than the actual milk. And I mean, him and I just like we walked out and we were like, what else can we do with this information?
Right.
And that's when we decided that we couldn't trust the grocery store anymore. We couldn't trust the food system. And that if we were going to do this and we were going to do this the right way, and whether it saved his life or not, but would set me and the kids up for health for the rest of our lives, we had to we had to figure out a way to grow all of our food.
Hmm.
And that's what sparked, I mean, everything that
All this madness now.
then that is why I come to you today. Um, so yeah, um we had a vacation planned to Idaho the next month.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, that wasn't really about the food. We came up here just to visit friends and stuff. And we kind of fell in love with it all over again.
we did very quick. And we had the kids with us this time.
And on the way home, we were like, okay, it's time to put the house on the market. Or maybe not, that was a different trip. I don't know. We knew at that point we wanted to start looking for a house or a piece of property where we could grow more. And there was a community near us that wasn't quite in the mountains, and we were really looking heavy at buying there.
Still
Um,
trying to stay near dad,
mhm,
but kind of get into some better growing area.
yeah. And we just weren't seeing anything. We went all the way through the winter looking and just never found anything that was in our price range that the VA would cover. It's really hard to buy farms with a VA loan because they won't cover a certain number of acreage and they won't cover homes that aren't in a certain disrepair. And so we were really struggling trying to find a place. And we had, oh, it was your, no, not your niece's graduation. We had some reason to come up here for a trip. And we came up to Idaho, and on the way home, we were like, we're done. We don't want to go home. We want to be here. And we made it, oh, that's what it was. We came up with my mom for the kid twins' birthday to go to Scarywood.
Scarywood.
Yeah. Okay, sidetracked, but we just decided at that point that Idaho was really where we wanted to be. Like, why do we keep coming to Idaho for vacations and then getting home to look for a house there, and all we can think about is when we move to Idaho one day. Um, so we decided that even though it would take us away from his dad, that we could grow the food we needed to grow, and why not give our kids the childhood that we want for them? Because I'm going to tell you, Oregon was getting pretty weird at that time. We had actually
Getting.
we started homeschooling, which we kind of cruised right over this part. This isn't a homeschooling conversation. We started homeschooling about a week after his original diagnosis.
Yeah.
There was a lot of reasons out there for it. There was a lot of catalysts that made us make that decision. But one of them is if the kids only have a year left with dad, and if we have to figure out how to grow all of our own food, we need the kids home. And so we started homeschooling at that time. So that wasn't what actually made us make the choice to homeschooling, but that was what solidified our
It definitely
choice.
helped.
Yeah. Which was really fun, learning how to homeschool all of our kids with a husband who was like, I will never homeschool our children, and I hate the Greek yogurt ranch dressing.
By the way, that's totally changed at this point. Not the ranch dressing, the homeschooling.
The homeschooling, like we finally started speaking together at homeschool conferences on how to kind of like homeschool without rules. And that's been really great that he's reached a lot of men that are disgruntled veterans that aren't on board for homeschooling and have been able to talk to another dad that is a very relatable dad to them on how we do it and how he embraces it. So, but yeah, so we decided it was time. We rented an Airbnb up here for a week. We loaded up the kids and we came to Idaho. And I mean, my poor realtor, I micromanaged him to death because I'm like, we have 5 days. I want to see like 27 houses. This is my schedule. You need to make these phone calls and get us into these houses.
Yeah.
And he played along really well.
He did. He did. He worked his butt off for us.
He did, but I mean, definitely any day spent with the Hanners is educational, and that's not always a positive thing. We are definitely a different bunch. So I mean, we looked at a few places. We saw one that we actually really liked, and I mean, knowing where we are in life now, it had a milking parlor. So I mean, I think about that milking parlor sometimes.
I don't.
Like, is there a way that we could just move the milking parlor here? So we had this house all picked out. Or this property.
She did.
It was really close to my friend. And like there was a back road that like we could like ride quads to each other's houses. It was going to be awesome. I was like a teenager, like I can go play with my friend. They had 20 fenced acres, 3 houses on the property.
Yeah, 3.
when we had kids that were getting closer to, teenage years, looking at college and stuff where, they could live in those. It had a barn with a milking parlor. I was pretty excited. He had this one house he wanted to go see before we like
We
signed on
called it the
the,
Canada House.
yeah, the Canada house. It's right on the Canadian border. But I really was like, if we're gonna move to another small town, I want to be close enough to one where the kids can do like dance lessons and music lessons and that type of stuff. So I had always lived like a half hour or more from the biggest town. And I was like, I don't want to live way out in the middle of nowhere again, but I'll go look at the house. Well, I'll go look.
We
It's fine.
were ready to, she was ready to put an offer in on the house down there in Athol. And I was like, nope, 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 nope. We're going to look at the Canada House first. After we go look at the Canada House, then we can put the offer in here. But we have to go look at the other one first.
And we got here. We had seen tons of pictures of the house. It was a for sale by owner. So they had a bunch of pictures. And I mean, I already knew that, it had a huge porch and a huge kitchen and all the bedrooms we would need. It was a gorgeous home. That wasn't the question. It was whether or not this piece of property would work for us and if I could stand the drive. Because we also knew that there was probably a really good chance I'd have to go back to work at some point, um, if we moved into this house because it's much bigger and, they're more expensive and stuff. So, was I going to have to drive to town all the time? So we come up here, we look at I mean, day with the Hanners, we head straight to the barn. We're checking out the barn, we're checking the chicken coops, we're checking
We had seen the house through all the pictures. We knew what the house was. It was
right.
beautiful. That was a given. We needed to know what the barn was. What's the structure up here?
Yeah, like what do we have to work with from day one? Like, because if we were putting like all of our eggs in this basket, we didn't have any other funds to be able to do any type of improvements on a piece of property. Like it needed to be latchkey, like or whatever they call it, turnkey
Turnkey.
ready. I was a realtor, I should know this. We needed to be able to like move right in with all of our animals because I mean we had pigs and goats and a pony. Like
It's a whole nother story.
we had chickens. Yes, we drug our chickens all the way from Oregon to Idaho. And so we look it all over, and my thing is I had to taste the water at every property. Um, because water is for me, like I drink water constantly, and with trying to keep him off of sodas, energy drinks, anything like that, we needed to have good tasting water, or he just wasn't going for it. Um, so we decided to taste the water at the water spigot at the barn. And of course, we have this one son. I've talked about him a lot. He's a little bit of a wild card, our older Wyatt. And he gets right down there and he tries the water with me. We're just drinking right out of the spigot at the barn at a house. So I mean, we didn't know anything about the place. Um, and so we realized there was a cistern and we
Sister.
wanted to check out the cistern. Like, let's check out this water system. And we go over and we lift up the cistern, and the water is like crystal clear, and there's a dead mouse floating in it. And we're like, oh no, like we need to get the mouse out of there. Like, I mean, it's already dead, but we don't want anybody else to have to deal with mouse water. Like, because we're those people. Like, we're gonna help out the people. So we go find this tool over at the barn and we reach down and we're trying to scoop this mouse, and it had been in there long enough that it was already pretty decomposed. And it just like falls apart in the water. And that poor
Realtor.
realtor.
He took off headed a different direction, dry heaving. It was hilarious.
Anyways, he finally like convinced us to go down to the house, probably because he needed a bathroom. And I walked like just straight through the front like foyer to the back windows to look at the view. And I said, this is it. There was no The view was amazing. The property was amazing, and this is where we're at. So we put in an offer the next day.
And the deal just got sweeter from
It
there.
it did. I mean, it was another disabled veteran who was selling it. He didn't want to have to deal with breaking it into parcels, so but knowing that the VA would only cover a certain amount for us, acreage wise, he offered basically if we come in full price, we got all the property, which was more than was listed with the
Yeah, it was
original.
almost double the acreage that was listed.
Yeah, and you know, that he would split closing costs with us, that he would throw in the tractor with the price, like a big John Deere 4020, all the rototillers, walk-in coolers. I mean, everything that this property, like it was ready to go for a homesteader, and we had no clue what a homesteader was because we just knew we wanted to grow more food.
Yep.
But looking back on it, if we were already, full bore into the homestead movement, we would have really known what we were getting. um, so we put in the offer, it got accepted. It took a little while to sell our house, but we were up here within 6 months. And right before the day that we got the call that like go ahead and move up, we found out that we were expecting our youngest. So I finally got that baby. He's for sale. He's crazy. He's insane. He tries to kill himself or everybody else on a regular basis. He is like the youngest child, like problem child that you hear about. Like
He's awesome.
he's very cute. um so yeah, we move up we pack everything up, we move up here, 12-hour drive. I get out of the car and it feels like somebody like hit me in the back with a baseball bat. Like I thought I was attacked or something. It was horrible. Worst pain I've ever felt. And I didn't know I couldn't breathe. I was like, maybe it's the allergies here. Like, I don't know what's going on. Um, so we, unloaded and we're just trying to get settled in. And we were here for a couple of days and it was just getting worse. Like I couldn't even walk to the kitchen without just doubling over. And so we went to um I didn't want to go to the ER because I just didn't know. I felt like, am I being silly over some allergies? Um, so I found a doctor and I went to one doctor and they were like, oh, sorry, we don't take walk-ins. Like, I don't know what to tell you. They're like, but there is a doctor down the road that takes walk-ins and they have a midwife. And I was like, well, that's perfect. I'm pregnant. So we go in there and I end up back up at the hospital to get some labs and um yeah, they had me do some labs and stuff like that. And they're like, okay, we'll call you if there's anything. We didn't even make it like a mile out of town. And we got a call from like the main doctor there, um, who was like, you need to get back right now. You have a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot in your lungs, and you need to be like hospitalized right now. Um, Another scary moment for us. That one luckily has turned out pretty well. I still have some scar tissue in my lungs from it. It made for a really hard pregnancy. But what I'm getting at with this one is we moved onto this farm with the intention of growing all of our own food. Ron and I had been doing everything together. I mean, 3 weeks after I had Wade, I hiked 6 miles down the PCT, and suddenly I couldn't walk from the bedroom to the kitchen without, just like I was done for the day. That was my adventure. And we had this farm that we had to figure out how to grow all of our own food by next summer. Otherwise, we couldn't afford it. And I couldn't get out of bed. And so Ron here, who I liked the idea of farming, but was still struggling with everything that we
Oh yeah.
had been going through, I was having to like bark orders from bed
She's
on,
good at
I really am, um, on how to run a farm, because that was another one is I had grown up ranching and had, my ag degree and stuff. Ron hadn't. I mean, he knew the basics, but he didn't know how to like start and grow and scale a farm the way we were wanting to do. And so, yeah, I had to pretty much
it.
do all of that. And I mean, if I was going to help, like they had to bring a chair up to the barn for me to sit there and like bark orders from the chair because I could barely move. And that was a really hard year starting a farm where I couldn't help. I was like I was the driving force of us trying to make all these changes that we had to do. And he was not really happy with his chore list.
Yeah, you could say that. There's life has been crazy. Thank God that it's brought us where we are. I oh, I look back at what just happened November 5th. Was that our
November 5th.
election?
Yeah.
Thank God. By the power of the people, by the power of God, I think we're setting ourselves up for an absolutely amazing situation. There's going to be some changes. It's not, maybe not all agree with it, but I hope most do.
The
Some,
war on big pharma and big ag is going to be
I
that.
feel like we're going to be, our country's going to be put in a place where they're not going to be able to use our food as a weapon towards us anymore. They're
Yep.
not going to be able to poison us as easy as they have in the past. Um,
If you guys listened to my podcast from 2 weeks ago, I go really deep into what's been going on with that, and that was even before the election. So go check that out if you want a little bit more information on that one.
Yeah, I don't want to get political, but I feel like our food system has been attacked for many, 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 many years, long before our generation. And I hope that this is an opportunity to make some changes that are going to be for the better for all of us. Um, get ready to start hearing some new stuff in the future here, gonna along the lines of good food and stubborn wives. I'll drop a little something out there for it because we found our good food, and I found my stubborn wife, and good Lord, is she stubborn. So yeah, we're gonna start trying to do a few more things together as far as some different work outside the home and some other podcast and stuff like that. And hopefully you'll get to see us all together some more.
Definitely. Because this path has really taken us, it had just happened that, COVID and all that happened right after we moved up here. And we were able to just like ride this homestead movement through all of our choices. But I think one of the really big ones for us is if you think back to that conversation with the doctor about the milk, right off the bat, one of the ones we wanted was a dairy cow.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, we aren't allowed to have raw milk. I did not want a dairy cow.
I fought for it. She fought against it. And oh man, was that a bad decision on my
We
part?
have a whole dairy herd now. But I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to pasteurize all this milk, which I'll admit I did pasteurize at first because I was pregnant, his diagnosis, and we had a 2-year-old that was lactose intolerant. And so we just weren't sure.
Total different process though.
Yeah, we did like low heat pasteurization. It's a little different. It doesn't get hot enough to kill all those, as many of the good enzymes and as many of the good bacterias. But I was like, I was afraid. What do we do? Like, we want raw milk, but if he doesn't follow this list, we weren't gonna, he would, if things didn't keep going the same way, we would still run into those same issues. So, um, we went to the same local doctor who, I didn't go into all of it with my pulmonary embolism, but he like saved my life and he was there with me through every step of it. Turns out he was like one of our new neighbors and was literally like, I'll come to your house and check on you. Because I want you home with your kids, but I don't want you not being monitored constantly. And he was wonderful. But we went back to him and told him our whole story. And we were like, so what do we do? And he said, if you are pursuing real foods, I support you every step of the way, and you have whatever backing from me that you need. And we're like, let's do it. And we went full bore. I mean, raw milk, sourdough. We raise pigs, chickens, beef, 2 acres worth of gardens. We have orchards. We are literally doing it all. And I think we definitely should probably almost even do a whole nother podcast to tell you every step that we've gone through. Like because if you want to emulate it or know everything that we're doing, I don't even think we could fit that all into one episode.
No.
But so like I said, we have gone like absolutely into it. And um a year and a half ago. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
Surgery.
Oh, yeah.
I kind
So
of
what I was
forgot
getting,
a very important
a
part
very
there.
important part of the story, which is what I was getting at. So, well, about 2 years ago, at that point, the VA, we'd been doing those 6 month appointments.
Yeah.
And at that point, they had said, I don't know, everything's coming back fine. Like, we don't see any, we're not, your liver isn't enlarged anymore. Your enzymes are fine. We can't really find any proof that you ever had liver disease, but it was there. We saw it. So you don't need to come back every 6 months now, but you should probably get your lab work done with your primary care about once a year. So a couple years ago, Ron went back to our primary care and said, "Hey, I had really wanted weight loss surgery um, a long time ago. There's no proof that I have cirrhosis anymore. Is this something you would consider for me?" And our doctor said, like, yeah, let's pursue it again and see what happens. The VA, I don't know if they decided he was good or somebody lost the paperwork, but that's probably more likely. Um, but yeah, they pushed him right through to get weight loss surgery. And we went to Palo Alto in California for the surgery. And, we sat down with the doctor beforehand and we asked her, will you take a really good look at his liver? Because we're kind of confused.
Yeah.
Um, So before the surgery was even over, she called me, or no, she called me in the middle of surgery because there was another thing she needed like my okay on during the surgery. But she goes, I just want you to know that before we even started the actual surgery, I wanted to check his liver and see what it looked like. And she goes, I see a little bit of visual scarring. So that tells me that the cirrhosis was there. She's like, but with palpation, and then we did a biopsy, which from what I saw, but we have to get the official results, he has a fully healed liver. She's like, the little bit of scarring is the only thing that tells me that what started your journey actually is what happened. And I mean, I got to hear it before Ron, but talk about like it was really I was alone down there too, and I was a wreck, like, but in a good way. Um, So yeah, he came out of surgery, and the first thing that she did is she sat down with us and said, "I am a bariatric surgeon for
Pediatric.
a pediatric bariatric surgeon at the University of California, and I'm sick of seeing these kids be sick and die and have to perform bariatric surgery on children." She's like, "Yes, your husband still struggle with your weight, but based on your health, I need to know what you've done." And I actually, 2 years later, we're still communicating with her on how we've pursued natural food and other things in our life, medications and the toxins and all those things that we'll talk to you about another day on. Um, but I mean, I don't even necessarily have the words. It was life changing, and we call it the re-diagnosis.
Right.
Um, because I kind of got my husband back that day.
A little bit.
No, he was kind of a jerk, like after surgery. Like, oh my gosh, I almost left him in California. You belong here. But I mean, how was that for you?
I don't remember.
How was it for you a week later when I reminded you?
I still don't remember.
How do you feel?
No, it's been great. Once I was unmedicated enough to grasp what had really just happened, it was a whole new lease on life. Um, I I thrive on helping other people more so than myself. It's always been me. It's what I do. It's always. I was a firefighter as a kid. I joined the military so I could go fight for our country. I got back. I was working on getting on the fire department again. We moved up here before I was even a permanent resident here. I was back on our fire department here. So getting that, it gave me that drive to be who I want to be. I want to raise my kids. I was scared to death that I wasn't going to be there, but I didn't know how to be a better person for that. Um, it 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 removed some of the dark from my brain where I had fell when I got the original diagnosis. Like I said, it's not all gone. I
Yeah.
still suffer from it, but I have a way out. I can pull a layer away every once in a while, and everything gets a little more clear. It was just a whole new lease on life,
And I
and
still make him eat things he doesn't like.
oh yeah, yeah, that's her job.
But he has discovered Brussels sprouts are good, so.
Alien brains, yeah. But it's been very life changing, and then to kind of get into the whole homesteading world and get to meet and work with some of the amazing people that we do on a fairly regular basis. Um, wow, it's great. I mean, not just what we know ourselves, but to get to work with all these other awesome, amazing individuals that are doing the same thing we do. They understand the same thing we do. And a lot of them are in the same place because they got crazy diagnoses either themselves or somebody in their family that forced them there.
Yeah, I've found that medical has been the biggest catalyst in pursuing like a homestead life. And I think that we're seeing that across the board and across the country that we're sick
Yeah.
as a nation. We are being poisoned.
Yeah. I look forward to taking this opportunity, this, should I say, new awakening, and hopefully help others understand how important it is to be self-sufficient, raise your own foods, to use the tools that are about to be handed to us to be productive in a very positive way.
And I think one of our big ones is that we really want to have this conversation with as many couples as we can.
Yeah.
Because it is hard starting a homestead with your spouse.
Yeah.
Even without the issues that we've gone through, because things are a million times better between us now than they were when we were going through those dark times.
Oh yeah.
And we still butt heads on how to like do things on the farm.
We've been married, what, 50 years?
I don't know, but it's over tomorrow. I mean, we can't even have a conversation about what's going on at the barn without getting into an argument over whether he meant man door or man gate. And then or I say it and then he's confused where I want him to move the cows. And it goes on and on and on because we speak a totally different language on everything.
Yeah.
So, but being able to have that conversation with other homestead families and spouses that, I mean, and I'm going to admit it, women are the driving force in the homestead movement. And it's because we're sick of seeing our husbands and our kids sick. And we being the place in the household that manages what's coming into the household, what's being fed to our families, what's being cooked, what we're using to clean. We are the gatekeeper on that. And historically and biblically, women were the ones who have always ran the farm and ran the homesteads. And I think that that's a really big switch when in modern society, it's only believed that men do those types of things.
Yeah.
And that's actually never how it's been. I mean, the men handle the big farming, the women keep the home sustainable and healthy. And I think it's really important. We want to be able to help you guys navigate some of those questions, navigate some of those feelings, and to hear it from both perspectives, not just the women out there and their voices and what they're able to what they're projecting, but hear from the men as well.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, would you like to say a few things?
No.
Well, we thank you for joining us today. We know that this has been a long episode, but we also know that I think that all the men out there could benefit from what?
Good food and stubborn wives.
Thank you, and I hope you all keep growing. Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at Homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!